Lord Watson of Invergowrie.
My Lord, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, no authors, books or genres have been banned by the government, and schools make their own choices about which specific books or other resources they use within the framework of the national curriculum. We trust the judgments of schools and teachers in their choice of books, and it's for individual schools to decide how best to provide and maintain a library service for their pupils and which books to stock.
I thank my noble friend for that answer. This is an issue essentially about intellectual freedom and opposing censorship. The School Libraries Association believes it's a symptom of the more polarised society we live in today, but their members are in the front line. And my noble friend is absolutely right. Of course, it's for schools to decide what they have in their libraries, but a balanced choice of books surely enables children to develop relationships with people who perhaps from different backgrounds than themselves, and to understand those with beliefs or opinions different from theirs. It's the case that almost all examples of school books being withdrawn from libraries followed complaints about LGBTQ content. So will my noble friend, in her dual roles as Education Minister and Equalities Minister, ask the DFE to begin collecting information on instances where school libraries have been put under pressure to censor their collections?
I think my noble friend makes a very important point about the power of books and reading to enable children, in fact all of us, to not only recognise the world in which we live, but also to have our horizons expanded in the way in which reading can do for us. The Index of Censorship survey was an important but relatively small survey, and whilst I understand the point made by my noble friend, and by the way, I recognise the important advice provided by the School Libraries Association as well as the government's reading framework on how to develop good quality school libraries. It has been the decision of subsequent governments not to collect the sort of data that my noble friend is asking for, partly due to burdens and partly because of the autonomy of schools to make those decisions about how they stock their school libraries. But his initial point about the benefit of a broad range of books for children to read and enjoy, I very strongly endorse.
For example, 50% of, or over 50% of books being withdrawn. And I wonder if the Minister is concerned that there might be a case of schools feeling intimidated and just a knee-jerk reaction, oh, withdraw the books, without actually thinking it through. And I'm surprised there's no thought of giving any guidance to schools about how they might react.
To clarify, I think that what the survey showed was that not 50% of books were withdrawn, but in 50% of cases there was pressure to withdraw books, and that pressure might have been might have come to fruition. As I previously said, there is important guidance for schools, both from the School Libraries Association, also through the government's reading framework, to support schools in developing their libraries, their other ways in which books are made available to children. And of course, we would support schools in making the right decision for the education and broadening of horizons of children, and making sure that all children's lives and all children's families are represented in the books that they have the opportunity to read in their libraries.
My Lords, does the Minister share the view consistent with the Government's wider commitment to freedom of speech that students should be trusted to engage with challenging material rather than shielded from it through library censorship? And what skills might teachers need to support students to disagree well through that challenging material?
I think the noble lady is absolutely right. It is part of the role of reading to challenge us, to, as I've said, broaden our horizons, and it's part of the skill of teachers to support in the way in which they teach about reading and they teach about books, the ability for students to be able to critically assess what it is that they're reading. Those are really, really important parts of our schools and something that we should be proud of and we should defend.
Being completely opposed to book banning, does the Minister agree that it is not censorship when parents raise safeguarding concerns about age-inappropriate books? For example, telling children there are 100 genders, that they're born in the wrong body, featuring double mastectomy scars positively, or a book for 3 to 7-year-olds entitled She's My Dad. Conversely, will the Minister agree to read the new Seen in Publishing Sex Matters report, Everyday Cancellation in Publishing, featuring censorship of gender-critical children's writers, such as the award-winning poet Rachel Rooney, who lost her career when her picture book My Body Is Me was smeared as transphobic?
Well, I think the noble lady consistently argues for freedom of speech and the opportunity for people to engage in a whole range of different arguments and views. I think that is important that that is represented in our school libraries. On the point about whether or not in libraries things are age appropriate, of course, the point about a school library is that it almost certainly includes within it books for the whole age range within that school. So it's difficult to argue that particular books may or may not be age appropriate. But I think she's also identified the way in which censorship limits our ability and children's ability to engage in arguments. And it's something, whilst obviously being working closely with parents on what's being provided in schools, we should aim to safeguard in our schools.
My Lords, as the Noble Baroness, the Minister herself said, this survey was based on a very small number of schools, under 100 out of our 22,500 schools. So I think she's right to be cautious in the conclusions one can draw. But I just wondered whether she could say something about the timing of the government's publication of the new RSHE guidance. The bigger issue is that parents don't feel confident that they know what their children are being taught in this area. The consultation closed a year ago. In March, the Noble Lady said that the government was taking its time to get this right. I just wondered how long parents will have to wait.
It will be important to ensure that the RSHE guidance, which of course the last government also took a very long time to consider, is appropriate and provides the right guidance both for schools and for parents. And to be clear on this, schools should ensure that parents are able to view all curriculum materials used to teach RSHE on request. We are currently reviewing the RSHE statutory guidance. We're doing that in a way that ensures that we provide appropriate guidance for schools and that we consider the safeguarding of children and the appropriateness of their education at all stages, and we will publish this guidance soon.
My Lord, leaving primary school without the appropriate levels of literacy. Wouldn't the Noble Baroness agree that the most important thing we should be doing is to give children a love of books? Wasn't Einstein right when he said that if you want your child to be a genius, then read to them? Wouldn't that be good advice to give, particularly to fathers up and down this land? Certainly as a child, my demobbed father, who was a desert rat, took me on the back of his bicycle every Saturday morning to get 2 books from the public lending library. I've always been extremely grateful to him.
My dad did the same, and I've always been extremely grateful to him for that as well. And I think the Noble Lord is right, that actually the first people who can encourage children to love books are their parents, and that's why through the family support and the Best Start for Life information that we provide to parents, ways of engaging at home with your children and books is a very important part of that. And then that love of books, in the widest possible sense, needs to be continued in school, and that's what this government will support.